Hi. How ya? What's the crack? Yeah. It is after St. Patrick's Day, but I still like to talk Irish to you. How y'all doing today? My sunshine fam. So I want to start off by apologizing for those few of you that watched my video from yesterday, which I have now taken down after I finished this video. I had no clue when I was setting up my camera yesterday. Obviously you saw this in the comments, but for those of you that never saw the video and are confused why I'm apologizing, my camera has like all these little buttons and stuff like that, and I've never really explored how to get into all the different settings on my camera. So apparently yesterday when I was setting up the shot, I hit one of the buttons on the top of my camera, and for some reason I turned off the microphone on my camera and I put it into slow-mo. So that is why the video looked like it was an hour and 40 minutes long, and when you clicked on it, my movements were very slow and you couldn't hear me talking. So hopefully you got my comment below the video apologizing for that. So for those of you that are watching this video that didn't watch the other one, you're not missing much. Trust me. Oh my gosh, when I uploaded the video, sometimes what I'll do is after I'm done making the video, I'll go back and rewatch just the first part of it to make sure that it went through okay. Yesterday I didn't, obviously. So I went ahead and did the whole uploading onto my computer and then onto YouTube. And then after it got uploaded, I went back to rewatch it for the first time. And I'm like, why is there no sound on this? Why are my movements going so slow? And then I realized that I had screwed up my camera. So anyway, I'm not going to remember exactly everything that I attempted to tell you yesterday, but I will go through kind of the highlights of it. Before we get started with that, in yesterday's video, I was getting a phone call while I was making the video, and it turned out to be Sea Dog. And what happened was, the place that he lives kind of on top of a hill, and behind the hill there's like a strip mall that has a grocery store in it that he frequents like pretty much every day to go get food for himself for dinner after work. And the other day he was out with Silver Star and Trefay Wolf, and he fell down that hill. Of course, at that time there was still snow on the ground. There's not anymore, but there was still snow on the ground, and he slipped and fell, and he said he hurt his back and his neck. Don't panic. He claims he's okay. I told him to go to the doctor. He said he didn't want to pay any more doctor bills because he has been going to the doctor quite a lot over the last couple of years, kind of like his mother. But he said he's been putting icy hot on it. So he said that seems to be helping. He is continuing to work. I told him that if it doesn't get any better, he better go see the doctor. So hopefully he takes my advice. So in this video, I want to talk to you again about divorce. Now, some of you may or may not know who Drew Lynch is. He is a stand-up comedian. He was originally on America's Got Talent. He came in second, and he was known as the stuttering comedian because at the time he had a very bad stutter. He wasn't born with it, but he had played softball a couple years prior to him winning, or him being on AGT. And he said that a softball, there was a grounder and it bounced funny and it hit him in the neck, and it hit him so hard that it threw him backwards and he fell on his head and ended up with a concussion. So not only did he have the injury to his throat, he ended up with a concussion and he fell asleep. And the next morning, all of a sudden he had this really bad stutter. So he's a very funny comedian. And since that time on AGT, he's been going to a regular therapist and a physical therapist. What I should say is a mental health therapist, like a psychiatrist or whatever, psychologist. And he, during the time that he was on AGT, he was with this one girl. Apparently, those two broke up. I'm not sure what happened there. None of our business, really. It's his personal life. And then after that, he met another girl that he's been with for over 10 years. He ended up marrying that girl, and he's used her in his act. He's done at-home videos where she's recording or she'll be part of the video, and they seem to be a really cute couple, and they don't seem to have any problems. But what do they say? You don't know what happens behind closed doors. And so, long story short, he's going through a divorce at this point, and he's taking it very, very hard because he's been with this girl for 10 years. He has admitted on some of his short videos, he said, I'm not even sure if I should even be putting this out there because it is my private life and my private personal life. And, a lot of these celebrities, we don't need to know what goes on in their private lives, even though the paparazzi seems to think that we need to know everything that goes on in these people's personal private lives. Would you want that information put out to the public? I wouldn't. So, I do put out some of my personal information, but you guys don't know a lot of it because it's something I don't feel comfortable sharing. So, in any case, he's going through divorce. It sounds like he filed the divorce on her, and he'd gotten with a lawyer to drop the divorce, and the lawyer convinced him to kind of surprise her with the serving of the papers. So I'm not sure if she saw it coming or not. I don't know. When he was making this video, he looked like he was maybe in a hotel room, so maybe he was on tour or whatever. I know he is currently on tour, but I don't know if it was maybe a friend's house or in a hotel room or whatever, but he was talking about this divorce, and he's really taking it very hard. I'm gonna sneeze, I think. So in a lot of these more current videos, he has been crying, so my heart goes out to Drew Lynch. Definitely check him out. His website is drewlynch.com. He does have videos on YouTube. I suggest you watch the one that's called, type in Drew Lynch Bat Attack. We're not talking about a baseball bat or a softball bat. We're talking about a flying bat. So, it's really pretty funny. That one was filmed in Wisconsin, I believe. And he had another short video from that same show where a guy had written a joke that he wanted Drew to tell on stage, but he didn't interrupt Drew's show until almost the very end of his show. And it ends up pretty interesting. So I would say definitely check that one out too. It might be linked with the Bat Attack video. So in like your recommended from YouTube videos. So check those two out. But he's having a very difficult time going through divorce. And I do want to say not all divorces end badly. Not all divorces end good. In my case, I have been married twice and divorced twice. I'm not looking for husband number 3, by the way. But in my case, I do want to give you a little bit of an insight as to my relationships and my divorces. In the case of my first, now ex-husband, my children's father, David, I told you about him in my Who Am I videos. I had met him when I was 18. He's 7 years older than me. And I wouldn't say that I was head over heels in love with him. I loved him, but I wouldn't say it was, like when you first get into a relationship and you have those butterflies and, oh, I can't wait to be with that person again. And, I just can't stand being away from them. I just love them so much. I never had that with David. Matter of fact, most of my relationships I didn't really have that feeling with. Only one guy in my entire life have I ever had those feelings that I couldn't stand being away from him. But we'll get into that in a minute. So with David, I was trying to escape the abuse that I had been suffering as a child. I'm still not going to tell you who it was that abused me, but I will say this person I still am in contact with. You're probably wondering, why are you in contact with them? Well, this person happens to be a family member. But I'm not in contact with this person very much. I'm not going to say male or female. But I was abused for many, many years, and I was trying to escape that. So, not a great reason to get married, but it helped me move on somewhat with my life. I mean, those thoughts are still in my head years later, but they don't come up very often with the abuse. But that's why I married David. We ended up with 4 children. When I was still engaged to him, I was thinking one day, I wonder if I will freak out during intimate moments with him. And so I decided I wanted to be intimate with him to make sure that I wouldn't, like PTSD would kick in or whatever. Of course, PTSD wasn't the thing back then, but this is in the 80s. So I ended up getting pregnant, and when I got married, I was 3 months pregnant with Clary. And I had severe morning sickness with her, to the point where before I got pregnant, I weighed 114 pounds. Obviously not anymore. Get into that in a second. But 3 months later, I weighed 102. Yeah. Whenever I would go in to take a shower, I could literally count every rib in my chest. And at times I had to have my mom help me shower because I was so weak. I ended up in the hospital a lot to try to get rehydrated because I couldn't even keep a sip of water down. That's how bad it was in my first pregnancy. The other 3 were not so bad. One of them, actually, I didn't have any morning sickness, but that ended up very badly with the pregnancy. So Clary was born. I got married to David, and then a few months later, Clary was born, and we didn't find out until the next day that she was 6 weeks early. We did actually lose her at the very beginning, but before I even knew anything happened, and the doctors were able to revive her. And for 6 months, she had sleep apnea, so she had to be on a very defective. We didn't know that at the time, but the machine that we had her on ended up being a defected machine, so it would go off when it shouldn't have gone off, or it wouldn't go off when it should have gone off. So we're lucky that she's still around to be with us. So then I got pregnant a couple years later with Jennifer. And I know I've talked to you about Jennifer before. I lost her 20 weeks into the pregnancy. So imagine how devastating that is. You're 19, you basically lose your first daughter only to be brought back to life, and she ends up with medical problems in the beginning of her life, and then to lose your second child, a lot of doubts go through your mind. And so I went on about 2-3 months later, after losing Jennifer, I got pregnant with Silver Star. And Silver Star still needs to make another video. A little bit of a sidetrack. She said, I don't know what to talk about. I went, talk about furries, talk about the book you're writing, talk about your fascination with wolves, whatever. And so as soon as she gets done making that video, whatever video I'm making, I will put in that video that I'm going to link her video in the description of whatever that video is going to be, future video, so that you guys can go over and follow her, because she doesn't have very many followers. So I don't remember the name of her YouTube channel because I don't go to it very often since she doesn't make very many videos. She does make Pokemon videos too. I don't know if Silver Star is part of her. I don't know if it's Silver Star or Star Shadow, whatever, but it's at Silver Star and then there's some numbers at the end. So I don't know what it is. So don't try to find her yet. Getting back on track. So Silver Star ended up being a day late. And so then several months later, I got pregnant with Sea Dog, and he ended up being 12 days early, but that was still considered on time. Now I did not have morning sickness with Jennifer, but when I got morning sickness with Silver Star and Sea Dog, we considered that to be a good sign. So all my living children I ended up being sick with, but with Silver Star and Sea Dog, I wasn't as sick as I was with Clary. So maybe my body was used to being pregnant and the hormones were not as bad this second, third, or fourth, well, the third and fourth time. I don't know, but I mean, I did lose a little bit of weight, but I had also gained some weight between Clary and Silver Star. So however that science goes, I don't know. But after some time, when the kids were little, David would be working full-time and I would work part-time in the evenings so that we wouldn't have to pay for daycare. And if our schedules ever overlapped by like an hour or two, we knew people in the neighborhood that would watch the kids while both of us were at work until David could come home and pick up the kids. So on the days that I didn't have to work, he would expect the house to be clean and have dinner on the table by the time he got home. Now, don't get me wrong, he was never controlling to that degree. I have been with a guy that's been controlling. I call him Psycho Dude, to the point where he needed to know where I was. If I was going to go out, he needed to know where I was, who I was going to be with, what I was going to be doing, and when I was going to be home. And if I was even 5 minutes late, I kid you not, if I was even going to be 5 minutes late, he wanted me to call him and let him know that. Even if I was a minute late, he would get mad at me for coming back, because I ended up living with him down in Illinois for a few months. He was super controlling, but in his case, he didn't have to tell me if he was going to go out after work, who he was going to be with, where he was going to be, when he was going to be home, whatever. So it's kind of a double standard in that respect. And back then, I didn't have as strong of a spine as I do now. So I ended up secretly leaving him. He knew I was going to be moving back home, but he didn't know I was leaving his house a few days prior to when I said I was going to leave. And he and I had a friend in common, and I ended up staying with her for a few days because I was working, so I would, I still have to finish out my work week, and then I was coming back home. That's another long story. I will, if you want to hear that one, leave your comments below. But while I was staying with this mutual friend of ours, well, let me get back to David. Okay, so David and I started having fallings out. And I would leave and stay with my parents for a few days, and then I would come back. He would sweet talk me into coming back. And that just kept going on. So like a lot of lows, more valleys than highs. So I got sick of the roller coaster. And one day I said, you know what? I'm done. I'm tired of your verbal abuse. One night, yes, he did force himself on me. So in that respect, I guess you would call that sexual abuse, maybe. Even though we were married, you can still have sexual abuse with your partner. If you are in a controlling relationship or in that kind of relationship, there is a way to get out. There are shelters that you can go to, whether you're male or female. I don't know if there's a lot of male shelters because it normally happens more with women than it does with men. But men do get abused too. So talk to a friend, talk to a pastor, or, a religious leader, talk to the police, figure out a way to get out. I stand behind you. I support you. If you think that you need some help, if you feel safe doing so, please comment below. And I will try to find you, and I'll try to get in touch with you. But just know that I'm with you if you're in that kind of relationship. There is a way out. But in any case, David was very verbally abusive. If the house wasn't clean, if dinner wasn't on the table when he got home, I would get yelled at. Now, half an hour before he would come home, I would start making dinner. The kids would be in bed with a nap, and the house was cleaned because I'd pick up all the toys and everything. Well, then the kids would wake up before he'd get home, and of course they'd want to play, so there were toys spewed all over the living room and everything, and he'd get upset because after a long day at work, he just wants to relax and come home to a clean house and dinner on the table. And I did my best, but I felt like I was a single mom because he would work long days, and I would be at home watching Barney with the kids all the time, or Sesame Street or whatever, and I missed communicating with an adult. So I just could never do anything right for him. So I said, you know what, I'm done. So we ended up getting a divorce. I danced out of that relationship because I felt like I was finally free. At the time, this is where it goes into the one guy that I really felt that I was head over heels in love with. At the end of the relationship, yes, I was still married to him, but I was on AOL, remember those days? And I was just looking for people to talk to, adults to talk to, and I ended up hooking up with a few people, and then I thought, what am I doing with my life? I'm not being a good mother, and even though the relationship between me and David wasn't that great, I wasn't being a good wife either. So I took myself out of that game, and I worked really hard. Of course, at this point, David had no clue that I was cheating on him. Don't do that anymore, by the way. Yeah, I learned my lesson the hard way. And so I said, okay, I'm going to stay off of the internet. I'm going to stay off of AOL. I'm not going to talk to any guys anymore. And I'm just going to focus on being a good mom and a good wife. Well, things with David and I were still kind of up and down, more down than up. And I found another guy. Don't remember how we found each other. I'm not going to tell you who he is, but we ended up in a very romantic relationship. He was also married, not happily at the time, and so we ended up getting engaged before either one of us was divorced, knowing that we were going to leave our spouses. Well, unfortunately, it didn't work on his end, but I divorced David. He eventually found out about me and this other guy, so he was trying to win me back. Didn't work very well. So in the end, the other guy's wife found out. She basically cut him off, and he and I kind of stayed in touch on again, off again over many, many years until I realized I wasn't the first one that he cheated on his wife with. And I realized that had he and I gotten divorced, had he divorced his wife and then he and I would have gotten married, rather, we probably would have ended up getting divorced anyway, because he probably would have cheated on me. And I actually confronted him about that years later. And he just bowed his head and kind of shook his head yes, because he knew he had a problem. And I told him, I said, well, I still love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. And it took me many years to figure that out. So in the meantime, David and I did get divorced over my infidelity and the fact that I just could not stand being put down all the time, being yelled at for not having the house clean and dinner on the table. And I just had enough. So while I was with this other guy, I decided, I was very selfish at the time. I just wanted to be with him. I didn't want to be tied down with the kids. It's a very hard thing for me to admit. Never wanted to give the kids up, but I gave David 100% physical custody, and I took 50% legal custody over the kids, which helped me when he wanted to move down south, David, and he wanted to take the kids with him, and I said, no way. That's a story for another time as well. I'm not going to sidetrack on that because I only have like an hour for my camera, for my battery. So I can go into more detail about bad relationships in another video if you so choose me to do so. Just leave your comments. So what happened was, after I got divorced from David, and then things fell apart between me and this other guy that I originally fell madly in love with. Not in love with him anymore. Don't even talk to him anymore because he went a little cuckoo. And so in the meantime, this friend, this mutual friend of me and Psycho Dude that I stayed with for a few days, I'm still friends with her, and she had kind of dated him a couple of times and then saw that he was a little bit crazy, but then she introduced him to me. Thanks a lot. So while I was still friends with her, and I went up to her house one day while I was living with Psycho Dude down in Illinois, this is when Ron came into the picture. He's my second ex-husband, and she had been dating him kind of on again, off again at the time. And so when I was at her house, he was at his brother's house, which was right down the road from where my friend lived. And so I met him at the time, and he's 5 years older than me. And when I first saw him, he's not very attractive. And I thought, yeah, I'm not really interested in this guy, although he kind of gave the vibe that he was interested in me, even though he was still kind of dating my friend. But I did not break them up at all. And so, long story short, I moved back to Minnesota after leaving Psycho Dude. That's when Ron turned on all the charm. Now, when I left Psycho Dude, I was living with him. So I was down there for several months, and I had a little Geo Metro. And I didn't have enough room in my Geo Metro to bring everything down, because when I moved down there, Psycho Dude had a van, so he helped me move, he helped me move some of my stuff down there. So I didn't have enough room in my Geo Metro to bring all that stuff back. So Ron at this point was starting to pursue me, and I was living in St. Cloud, Minnesota, which is where David moved to after he and I got divorced with the kids. So that I didn't live with David, but I lived in the same apartment complex, just in a different building. So I could see the kids more. And so Ron started pursuing me, and that really touched me because I saw at the time, his good heart. And so I ended up, the talk was that he and I were going to move in together. He did eventually ask me to marry him. I said yes. And then I tried to convince him to move up here because I wasn't going to move away from my kids again. And he kind of dug his heels in because he was living with his mom. He was in his 30s. Big time mama's boy. He was more married to her than he was to me when we got married. Another long story. Another video. So I ended up, after several months of going back and forth about who should move in with who, I ended up moving down to Illinois. Now, don't think that that decision came lightly for me. I made the stipulation that if I moved down there, I was going to visit my kids as often as I could, which turned out to be one weekend every month for a few years. Then David decided he wanted to move down to Florida or Alabama. He couldn't figure that out either because he was tired of the Minnesota winters. I can't blame him. So he was going to take the kids down with him. And I said, overnight, my dead body. Because I said, then I'll never see the kids. At least now I can see them once a month. But you moved to Florida, or Alabama, I don't have the means to go down and visit them hardly at all. Maybe once or twice a year if I'm lucky. So he says, well, I have physical custody, so you have no say over it. I said, I have 50% legal custody. You leave these state lines with our children without my permission, I will get you thrown in jail for parental kidnapping. And I was not kidding. So we went to court. He was going to court to ask the court to have him bring the kids down to the South. I was asking the court to have the kids with me for the summer. And both of us lost our appeals. So when I got married to Ron, the kids were in the wedding. They did come down and visit me once in a while, when David allowed it. We had to go up and pick them up and bring them down and then bring them back. And so David decided he really had enough of our Minnesota winters. And so he said, I know you really want the kids. You know I really want to move down south. I said, I don't care if you move to Tasmania. You can go wherever you want. You're just not taking the kids with you. So he ended up letting me have the kids at that point, and then he moved down south, which is where he's still at. I ended up with the kids, and so in the meantime, I'm living with Ron and his mother in her four-bedroom home, so there was plenty of room for all the kids. His relationship and mine at the beginning was really good, and all of his friends were warning me, he'll never leave his mother, so you're going to end up living with his mother after you get married. I said, no, trust me. I said, I've got, he seems to be madly in love with me. I love him, not madly in love, but I love him, and I believe that once he gets married, because he had never been married before, once he gets married, he will leave his mom, because that's what it says in the Bible. A man must leave his father and mother and cling to his wife. So he and I had been looking at houses before we got married, and he decided that he had to talk to his mom about it, and his mom talked him out of us buying a house in Rockford, Illinois. So my relationship with him went south very, very quickly. I saw that his friends were right. He wasn't going to leave his mother. He had actually kicked me out of his mother's house a few times. And the day that I ended up leaving his mother's house was one of the best days, one of the worst days and the best days, because I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to make it on my own with just myself and my kids. Even though I was working and I was making pretty good money, I'd have to spend money for an apartment and take care of my kids and get them to school and feed them and clothe them and pay for all your utilities and all this other stuff. I'm like, how am I going to do this? And it did work out. And so then after that, I found a house up in Rockford, Illinois. Ron and I were still married, kind of sort of separated because we weren't always living together. It was my apartment, so only my name was on it. Same thing with the house. He wrote off his responsibility in the house because he had too many debts from before I married him. So technically the house was mine. So when we get into our major fights, I could kick him out of the house with no repercussions, that he would stay, claiming that the house half belonged to him. It was my house, which did happen quite often. So he was very verbally abusive to me. He has many medical issues. He had high blood pressure. He suffered from panic and anxiety attacks from his childhood, and he was on different medications for that. Well, the medications that he was on, the doctor kept boosting up his dosage, and it was cutting into our love life. And so I asked him one day when I was living in Illinois, or in Rockford, I said, is there any way you can talk to your doctor and see if he can maybe cut back a little bit so we can get our love life back on track? And unbeknownst to any of us, because again, my kids were living with me, he decided to quit his medicine cold turkey. He didn't talk to his doctor. Well, one day he got in a fit of rage over something I won't go into, but he ended up grabbing Sea-Dog. Not physically like grabbing his body or choking him or punching him or anything, but he grabbed his shirt. I saw him going after Sea-Dog. I got in between the two of them. Now keep in mind, I'm 5'5", Ron is 6 foot. I know that Sea Dog is my protector, so I felt I had to play Mama Bear. So Sea Dog was about ready to smack Ron, and I didn't want that to happen because I knew Ron would have called the cops and filed assault charges on Sea Dog and put him in juvie or whatever, because he wasn't 18 yet. And so I got between the two of them. And I said, you get your hands off my son. Now keep in mind, I did not have any children with Ron, just with David. So he was going to drag Sea Dog into his room to discuss this issue that he had with him. And he eventually did let go. And it just kept escalating from there. One night around Christmas time, his dad, who at the time lived in Michigan, his dad is no longer with us, his mom is no longer with us, and his dad was in town and was visiting Ron's brother, who lived in Rockford. We lived in Elgin at the time. And so we went up to see him, and Ron and I ended up in a fight. Well, on the way back home, of course, we had the kids with us. On the way back home, it's like 10:30 at night, around Christmas time, in the middle of nowhere between Rockford and Elgin, Illinois. Out in the middle of nowhere, somebody cuts him off. Now, he's already upset with me. I'm upset with him. So the ride home was very quiet. And this car of kids cut us off. He went from 0 to 1,000 in 0.1 seconds, and he starts chasing this car down the highway, flashing his brights, and I could see what was going to happen. Those kids were going to brake check us, and they did. He did not hit them. He became very close several times. Of course, the kids are in the back seat hearing all of this and seeing all of this, and they're terrified. And Sea Dog was talking quietly to me, but I couldn't hear what he was saying. He was basically saying, call 911. I didn't want to escalate it any further, as if it could go any further. So eventually, the kids in this car drove Ron off the road. So they kept going. We're sitting on the side of the highway. Ron calls 911. I'm in the passenger seat. The kids are in the back seat crying quietly. And he's yelling at the 911 operator about these people that cut him off. And I thought, this is my opportunity. So from the passenger seat, I yelled loud enough for this 911 operator to hear me. I said, you are endangering my children. Hoping the 911 operator heard me. And he, with the phone at his ear, turns to me and screams, shut up! I'm like, oh, shnikey. So at that point, once he got off the phone with 911, he orders me and the kids out of the car. I said, I'm not getting out of this car. First he said I was going to get out and then he was going to take off with my kids. Hell no. So I said, we're not getting out of the car. Just go. He's like, no, you're pissing me off. Get out of the car. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, we're out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of December in Illinois, okay? For those of you in the South, it's cold and it's snowy in December and it's dark. I wasn't going to get out of on the side of the road. No way. So eventually we did go. We went home. I called 911 when we got home. Ended up with him in handcuffs, spending the night in a holding cell at the police department because he grazed the policeman with his finger by saying, go take care of one of your own. He got pepper sprayed, put in the back of the car. His mom blamed me for the whole thing. She wasn't in the car. She wouldn't listen to me. And she's like, well, if you're calling 911 on him, you're going to be sorry. I'm like, no, woman, you're going to be sorry because you raised this. You know? So that's when he kicked me out of his mom's house the first time. So that's when I ended up in the apartment. So then, years later, that was, I don't even remember what year that was, but it was before 2008, or 2006 actually, because that's when I moved to Rockford. So because he had stopped taking his medication, getting back on track about his anger issues, one night in March of 2008, I was working in a cafeteria within an office building. And I would have to get up really early and be to work at like 6:30 in the morning to make breakfast. Or, well, not make breakfast, but serve people breakfast that would come into work and get breakfast in the morning. So the night before, I would go to bed really early, 9, 10 o'clock at night, so that I could get up and go to work. So Ron didn't go to bed until about 11 or so. And he was going to get ready for bed, but he didn't want to turn the light on and wake me up. So he was using the hall light. Now at the time, I had my 2 dogs, Rainbow and Lucky. And what we would do is we would lock them in the closet, or not in the closet, what am I thinking? We would lock them in the bedroom, which just meant closing the door so they wouldn't run around the house all night and pee and poop all over the house. So Silver Star wanted to put the dogs to bed that night. So Ron was quietly talking to her, saying, "Don't shut the door. I need the light to get dressed so I don't wake your mom up. Please let me put the dogs to bed." She goes, "No, I want to do it." So she put the dogs in the room and closed the door. So he started to get upset because she wasn't listening to him. So he opened the door to let the light in so he could get ready for bed. The dogs ran out. This is at the point where Silver Star and him start going at it a little bit, getting in a little bit of an argument. And Silver Star is quite stubborn because she is German like her mother, and her dad has German in him too. What Minnesotan doesn't? Basically what most of us people have some German in us, I'm sure. So anyway, it escalated. She kept trying to put the dogs to bed, and she kept shutting the door. He kept opening it. He was getting madder and madder. She was getting madder and madder. So they start screaming at each other. I wake up, it's 11:30 at night, hearing the 2 of them screaming. Now, my bedroom was at one end of the hall. Sea Dog's bedroom was next to my bedroom, and Silver Star's was on the end. Clary was sleeping in the basement, and the basement had a door that would shut. So Clary's hearing this yelling, obviously, because he's getting really loud. Silver Star's getting really loud, so they're screaming at each other. Sea Dog is hearing the yelling. Then they hear me get up. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? I'm trying to get some sleep. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know what started the whole thing. So when my bed was kind of around the corner from the door. So when I got up and I looked around the corner in the door down the hallway, I see Silver Star disappearing into her room. Ron is very close behind her, screaming at the top of his lungs. So I come into the hall. I meander down the hallway to Ron to try to get him to stop and just come back to bed. And whatever it is, we'll deal with it in the morning. And he wasn't hearing me. Silver Star is on the other side of her room screaming at him. He's at her door screaming at her. Thankfully, he didn't go in there because I would have gone off on him. So he never laid a hand on my girls. I know that for a fact. Otherwise, they would have told me. So as he's coming out of the room, I put my hand on his back here, on this upper shoulder. He instinctively, I'm going to do it with my right arm because I can't do it with my left. He instinctively goes like this to shake off my hand. I instinctively close my fist. I heard his shirt tear. He feels my nails, which were not very long at the time, on his skin. He grabs my right arm. At this point, I'm at the wall that is by the stairs. Clary is at the top of the stairs, she tells me. Sea Dog is still in his room on the other side of his door with his hand on the doorknob. Like I said, he is my protector. I think Ron slammed Silver Star's door. So she's in her room, still fuming, trying to get ready for bed. What she's doing up at 11:30 at night, I have no clue. So anyway, he grabs my wrist, pushes me into the wall, Clary goes flying down the stairs thinking he's coming after her, hides in her bed and covers herself up. Sea Dog is hearing this because he didn't just like gently push me into the wall. Ron didn't. He shoved me into the wall, so it made a noise. I'm staring over Ron's shoulder at Sea Dog's door, praying that Sea Dog did not open that door, because I knew what was going to happen if he did. Had he seen Ron pin me against the wall with my hand up like this, squeezing as tight as he can, spraining my wrist, by the way, he would have jumped Ron. He would have laid his butt out. So I'm thankful that none of my kids saw what happened. They heard it, obviously. And Ron is literally this close to my face, screaming in my face. Don't ask me what he said, because I don't remember. And he eventually lets go because I'm crying, and I'm like, you're hurting me, you're hurting me. I'm trying to say quietly enough so my kids didn't hear. Well, Sea Dog obviously heard me say that. He literally was turning the knob on his door. Something stopped him from opening that door. I'm so grateful for that. So then eventually Ron let go, stormed off down into the bedroom to get dressed for bed. I'm still against the wall for a few seconds, several seconds, going, what just happened? And all of a sudden I start feeling pain in my wrist, up my arm, and in my hand, and I'm starting to see my hand is swelling. My wrist is swelling. So when I come in, I sit on the bed and I start crying. At this point, Ron is starting to calm down. He comes over, looks at my hand, and he sees that it's starting to swell. So he goes into the kitchen. Now, the way that my house was, when you walked in the front door, you would walk straight to, like, in a little hallway that went to another hallway. So it kind of went in like a circle. So when you walked in the front door, you could either go to the right into the kitchen, to the left into the living room, or straight into the bedrooms. The hallway that went to the bedrooms kind of curved around as well from the bedrooms to the kitchen. So, and that right around the corner from the opposite side of the door was the door to the basement. So once Clary heard that things were calming down, she quietly made her way up the stairs. I don't know how he didn't hear her open that door. I mean, it wasn't squeaky or anything, but she gently opened the door. She snuck around to the hallway behind the wall while Ron was in the kitchen trying to get me some ice, and comes into the bedroom and quietly says, "Do you want me to call 911? Because she saw that I was crying. And she said, "Did he hurt you?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Do you want me to call 911? Because she had a phone in her bedroom. So I said, "No, let's just leave it alone and we'll take care of it later." She goes, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, I don't want to escalate it again. Just go back to bed." So she went back downstairs, went back to bed. Sea Dog, thankfully, went back to bed, didn't come in to see how things were at. Silver Star never came out of her room either. So Ron put some ice on my wrist and wrapped it really tight. Well, the next day I go to work and my wrist is wrapped really tight, and one of the workers of the company, not the cafeteria, but the company, saw that my fingers were swollen. Now, she was like a first aid person for her department. So she notices this, and she said, "Oh, what happened to you?" And I said, "Oh, there was an altercation between me and my husband last night." She goes, "You need to go to the hospital." I said, No, I'll be fine." She goes, "No, trust me." She goes, "Where's your boss?" So I'm like, "No, I can't leave. I'm the only one that can do this, cashier or whatever." She goes, "Let me talk to your boss." So I showed her where the boss was. The boss came out, didn't even know what was going on, saw my hand. He goes, "I'll take over, go to the hospital." Okay, so I went to the hospital, told the hospital what exactly happened. They called the police. Police came, made a report. Ron ended up with a 72-hour stay away, and I ended up filing a restraining order against him. He got served that day When I went to the hospital, I got medication. I don't think it was Vicodin, but it put me to sleep. So I'm sound asleep. Ron is call. I told the kids, I said, if the phone rings, just let it go to the voicemail because I'm sure it's going to be Ron. Or let it go to the answering machine. So he's screaming into the machine, and I still have the tape for it, showing how loud and how pissed off he was. So he kept calling and kept calling and kept calling and kept calling. So Clary eventually answered the phone. He insisted on talking to me. So she wakes me up. She said, Mom is sleeping. She needs to go to work in the morning. He goes, I don't care. You put your mother on the phone. So I'm like, okay. So I get up. Clary wakes me up, and I'm on the phone. I'm like, hello. He's screaming in my ear, and I'm like, who is this? He goes, you know damn well who this is. And I'm like, Ron? He goes, yes, it's Ron. Why the hell did you do this? I'm like, I don't even know my own name right now. I'm like, I'm on medication. I'm sound asleep. So eventually I filed for divorce. At this point, this is the summer of 2008. David had come up for Silver Star's graduation, saw that the schools weren't that great, and insisted that Sea-Dog move down south with him. At this point, I think he had moved from Alabama, southern Alabama, to the Panhandle of Florida. So Sea-Dog, at Silver Star's graduation party, was informed that he was moving down to Florida with his dad. None of us were happy, especially Silver Star. So he was down in Florida. A few weeks before I moved back to Minnesota, I moved my kids up here to stay with my parents. My girls, I should say. So my parents made sure that they got a job and that they would stay with them until I was able to finish out my job, get all my stuff together, and move back to Minnesota in my little car. With the understanding, at this point, Ron had already told me that he had stopped taking his medication cold turkey, which is why he was flying off the handle. Things were not going well. He was trying to win me back, and I said, no, I'm done. You hurt me. I'm not giving you a second chance. One strike, you're out. So the day that we got divorced, he came back to the house before I got there, called my parents, screamed into their answering machine where they couldn't even understand him. Oh, great, now we're divorced. Yay, I hope you're happy, blah, 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 blah. So he's blaming it all on my parents, of course. Well, over the years, Ron and I kept in touch now and again. He would explode and then he'd calm down. So very volcanic-like. He never put his hands on me again. Never put his hands on my kids, on Sea-Dog or any of my kids again. We kept in contact for a while when his explosiveness pretty much was taking over every phone conversation we had. I said, you know what? You're out. These kids are not yours. They were your stepchildren. They're not yours anymore. The day we got divorced, your bond broke with them. They're not any responsibility on yours. So I no longer talk to Ron. I very rarely talk to David, and that's not because there's any animosity between us. It's just he has his life and I have mine. So, of course, when Clary and Silver Star got married, we would be in contact now and again. We were somewhat civil to each other at both weddings, and I don't really see him very often. The kids don't see him very often. He doesn't come up here that often. The kids used to go down every year to see him for a short, like a short visit or whatever, but they don't do that anymore. So the kids don't see him very often. I know Sea-Dog talks to him quite frequently. Silver Star, I believe, talks to him once in a while. I think maybe Clary does too, but they don't. Sea-Dog has a good relationship with him, but the other two don't really have a good relationship. So after my divorce from Ron, I decided to take some time off from dating anybody. And Of course, I was very happy to get out of that relationship, as I'm sure you could understand. So I spent many years reevaluating my life and how, with every relationship, you've got two people that make or break a relationship. So I thought, in every relationship going all the way back to junior high, what have I done to contribute to the breakup of every relationship I've had? And I realized that when I start a relationship and it's new and I start getting those little butterfly feelings, oh, I can't wait to be with this person again, I can't wait to talk to them, that kind of thing, I get really clingy. Or at least I used to. I keep myself in check nowadays. So since my divorce from Ron, I did date one guy that ended up being my roommate from when I got kicked out of Ron's mom's house and lived in the apartment down there. He didn't pursue me until after, again, I moved back to Minnesota in 2008. We'd kind of dated a little bit on and off. He was supposed to come up and see me. He never did. He ended up, he was in the Army, and he ended up in Iraq during the Gulf War, so he has Gulf War syndrome. So for a while, his doctor would prevent him from leaving the state. So of course I understood. I had to go down and see him. He's better now, but he still has never come up to see me. Well, I don't talk to him anymore either. He ended up being clingy with me. So in that relationship, I don't feel I did anything wrong, because he was insistent on me moving down to Illinois again, away from my children, even though they're now, adults and living on their own. He insisted on me moving down there. He was going to pay me like $5,000 a month to take care of him and be his caregiver. I'm like, I've done that once already, not being a caregiver, but I've already left my kids actually twice to go down and live in Illinois. I'm not doing it a third time. Why don't you just move up with me? Well, I don't want to move away from my daughters and my grandkids. I said, well, but you're asking me to do the same for you? Why should I do that if you're not willing to make the move? So that relationship kind of ended. He also became a truck driver after he got out of the war, and he has a trucker's mouth, although when we were dating, he'd use the F word a lot, and I'd say, watch your mouth, and he'd watch it around me. But, I thought, I do tend to, when I get in a relationship, I do tend to be codependent on the person to make me happy. So that's why I don't get into relationships that much, because I know how I've been in the past. And I don't want to do that again, because I don't want to ruin another relationship. So you may be asking yourselves, am I with anybody? No, I'm not. Do I have somebody in mind? Yes, I do. And it's not who you think it is. It's not Chris Fleming, although that would be sweet too. It's somebody I've known for a few years. We are just friends. He knows how I feel. I know how he feels. He sees me as just a friend for right now. Maybe in the future it might work out that we end up together. I'm not rushing things. I'm giving him his space. So, we are not in a romantic relationship. We are just very good friends. Not going to tell you who he is, but I'm patient. So I am not looking to be in a relationship with anybody else, because I know how I can be. And when I start having conversations with him for more than a day or two, I start getting very happy, to the point where I'm like starting to get to that line, and I'm like, nope, I'm not going to cross that line. I'm not going to push it and ruin the friendship we have. So I'm watching myself so that I don't get in another codependent relationship, and that I don't depend on this person to make me happy. It's time for me to make myself happy, which I have been doing for the most part. There are days, we all have our days that we, are not always happy. I mean, life is that way, you know, especially in this country these days. You know what I'm talking about because I've been making a lot of videos about it when I was laid up. I am back to work now, by the way. It's going pretty good. This week I start back full-time. We'll see how I do with that. The last 2 weeks, on my choice, I went back part-time. The first day was an 8-hour shift, and that was pretty grueling on my entire body, not just my arm, but I'm not used to standing on a hard surface for hours at a time. So the first day I could barely move. So I am back to work now. Hopefully my body can get used to standing on a hard surface and being there for 8 hours a day again. And because I've been working 5.5 hours for the last 2 weeks. So we're getting there. So the other divorce story I want to talk about doesn't have to do with me. It has to do with somebody I know. I'm not going to name this person, but this person, this female, she met her guy when they were both 14. And he's the only one I ever remember her being with. And they eventually got married. They had 3 kids. They have grandkids. And in recent years, I don't know if he just had a midlife crisis or something, midlife breakdown, but out of the blue, he went up to her and said, "I want a divorce," and caught her completely off guard. Out of all the people I've known that are married, they were the last people on earth that I thought would ever get a divorce, ever. So they got a divorce. She's been going through a lot in the last couple of years, kind of the same way that Drew Lynch is. But she's moving on, she's getting on with her life. She doesn't plan on being with anybody ever again. Major trust issues, which I can totally understand after Ron. I don't talk to her too often. I told her that, out of all the people that she knows, I'd probably be the one that would understand the most, even though her divorce was a bad divorce. My divorces were very good divorces because I was glad to get away from them. But divorce can be tricky. And she continues to live in the same house. He moved out. And she continues to work and has her group of people that she's very close with, her close-knit people, just like Drew Lynch does. And I'm a recluse. So, I have less than a handful of people that are what I consider my inner circle. 3 of them happen to be my kids, but I'm talking like friends. So I don't really have a lot of friends because I don't trust a lot of people. So if you're thinking that I might be a prospect for dating you, the answer is no, sorry. Because I'm not looking at getting into a relationship right now. Maybe in the future with this one person that I'm friends with, maybe he'll come around, maybe he won't. But even if he doesn't, I will probably die being his best friend. Never dating again. So that's my sad story, I guess you could say. Am I a better person because of my divorces? Maybe. I don't really see myself as being super, super strong. I might come across that way. But those that really know me know that I do break. Obviously, you see that with my dogs. I'm very loving with animals. Unfortunately, I don't have one right now. I did have a hamster for a while, but Dusky died. So I don't have another hamster. I don't have any animals. Can't have any dogs in the apartment I'm living in, unfortunately, unless it's a service dog, which I don't need. But, for the most part, I'm happy being single. It's like that line in Mamma Mia where she says, "I don't have some middle-aged menopausal man telling me what to do with my life. I'm single and I'm free and it's great." Until nighttime comes. Going to bed and waking up alone does kind of sometimes suck. But it is nice that I don't have to put up with somebody else's stuff. I don't have to conform to what they want me to be, and I don't expect anybody to conform what I want them to be. I need to check myself on that as well. And don't, if you're in a relationship, check yourself and say, am I trying to change this person to be what I want them to be, or am I accepting them for who they are? That's a hard thing for, I think, everybody. So that's another issue that I have to deal with when it comes to relationships. Any kind of relationship, really. Friendship or otherwise. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Hopefully this video works out better. I'm going to double check the video this time to make sure that it recorded properly. At least I'm doing this early enough in the day that if I have to re-record it again, I can. And I have it on recording because I decided to use my digital recorder to record this so that I can remember what I said in case I have to do this again. For those of you that don't know, I have a bunch of digital recorders, most of which I have recorded music on, movies. When I was doing data entry, I would bring them to work and listen to them at work, so I'd have something in the background to listen to. But two of these digital recorders, I was inspired by Anne Frank. And I thought, I'm not very good at writing everything every night in a diary. So I thought, obviously I'm good at talking. So I thought, I'm going to do an audio diary. So I got a digital recorder, and back in September of 2012, on September 1st, I started making a digital diary for myself, an audio diary, I call it. And so in each digital recorder has 4 folders on it, and you have so many hours to record on the entire thing, which includes several hours, hundreds of hours. So I decided for the first one I would do, well, on both of them actually, I decided I'd do 2 years on one folder, and then when I got to the 3rd year and 4th year, I put it on a second folder. So then 2012 and 2013 are on folder A in my other digital recorder. 2014, 2015 are on folder B. 2016, 2017 on folder C, 2018, 2019 on folder D, and then I had to get this one to continue it. So this one, I am on folder C, I think. So I've been doing 2 years at a time on my digital recorder. So this is my you are now part of my my audio diary, because I'm recording this on my audio diary. I don't record in it every night. I just record, and I've recorded things like news, major news stories, what's going on in my life, what's going on in my kids' lives, stuff like that. I usually do it really late at night. And then there's been times when I've actually been recording and I fall asleep. And then I wake up a few minutes later and realize that the recorder's still going, not knowing how long I've been asleep. Then I go back and re-listen to it. I don't erase it, but I'm like, I go back and re-listen to it going, yeah, I wasn't making any sense. I was talking about the weather, and then I'm talking about Ron coming in my room. I'm like, what? So it does get quite entertaining. And I have had the kids sometimes a part of the older recordings that I've done, especially at the beginning when they were all living with me in 2012. So, yeah. So I decided to record this one today. Probably won't do that very often with with these videos on my audio diary. I just decided to do it today. So this is my recording for you guys and for myself and for anybody who listens to it after I die. So now if you're watching this video, you can go to my recorder and my second digital recorder on my third video, or my third audio, and it's number 39. So, because it like each recording has a different number. So on each folder, it starts out with 1 and it goes all the way through. So, didn't do too many of the audio recordings during the time that I was laid up. But anyway, so I do have some more ideas for more videos. But like I said, now that I'm back to work and this week I'll be working full time, I probably won't be putting them out as often. This next week I have today off, which is Sunday, and then I have Friday off. So I might do another one on Friday. Don't count on it. Depends on how well my week goes and how sore I'll be at the end of the week, my whole body. But I will try to get the videos out to you as often as I can. I'm not going to be making too many more newsworthy videos. We all have enough people to watch for that. Again, I suggest you go to Luke Beasley, go to Jimmy Kimmel, go to Jon Stewart. They will keep you all informed as to what's going on with Iran. I'm thinking of maybe doing a video about the Constitution, because there's a lot of talk about the Constitution, but how many of us really know what the Constitution has in it, except for little bits and pieces, like your First Amendment rights is freedom of speech, and I think its Fourth Amendment is the right to bear arms or something like that. But do we have any of us really read the entire Constitution, including those of you that are in office, those that are so-called leaders? Do they even know what the Constitution says? I really wonder about that. So I'm thinking of maybe doing a video on that, doing some research on that. Research? What is that? But like I said, I'm going to be going back to work full time this week, so I probably won't have as much time to do research anymore. And I definitely will not be putting out videos as often as I was in the past 3 months, especially since January. But I do have some ideas, and now that it's getting warmer outside, hopefully I can do some videos for Adventures with Chloe. One more quick side note before my battery completely dies is that when I was looking up information about places to go in the city I live in, I was scrolling down. A lot of these places I've already been to and done videos at. And at the end of the list on Google, it was listing houses for sale. And I saw this house. You guys are not going to believe this. It is the most expensive house in Minnesota, and I'm not kidding you, in the entire state. It is just a few miles from where I live. This house sits on 8 acres of land. The house itself is over 29,000 square feet, almost 30,000 square feet, I believe, or maybe it's close to 29,000 square feet. It has a bowling alley inside the house. Yeah. It has what they call a wine cave underneath the house. So if there's ever a tornado, just go into your wine cave, what I call a man cave. It has 8 bedrooms, 18 bathrooms, 16-car garage. Yeah, 6 above and 10 below. Sits on 650 feet of shoreline. I was telling people 160, but then I went back to watch the video. Yeah, there is a video on this house, by the way, if you want to see it. The address is 2270 Gale Road. This house is absolutely massive. It has 2 guest houses at the second gate. Like you drive on the road, there's a first gate, and then you can see the second gate where the guest houses are. It's got a boathouse, a pool house. It's got 3 floors, like 3 or 4 wine cellars in it. An elevator. Yeah, an elevator. So if you're handicapped, you can go up there. You want to know how much this house costs? It cost them $84 million to build this house. It is for sale for the unbelievably low price of $55 million. Yeah. They had to put these videos into 2 separate videos to cover most of the house. It has a bunk room of 8 bunk beds in it. It's not a bunk room. That is a barracks. I mean, my God, it has a theater inside, an 8-seat theater, maybe 10 seats, with recliners. The TVs are 84-inch flat screen TVs. The one in the master bedroom comes up out of the floor. Yeah. The kitchen, if your hands are dirty, one of the kitchens, I should say, if your hands are dirty and you don't want to touch the faucet, there's a pedal on the floor that you step on to wash your hands off to turn the water on. Are you kidding me? Like, what? The sliding doors have a remote control to open them. I can't even think of anything that this house has. And like, the master bedroom closet is not a closet. Okay? It's like its own bedroom. It's so huge. I don't even think the Kardashian sisters could put all their clothes in this closet. Honest to God. All the showers are walk-in showers. And like, they have marble throughout, they have mahogany, they have oak. I mean, it's massive. They've even got what they call a snore bedroom. So if your spouse snores or you snore, you can go into this other bedroom and it's bulletproof. You are way off the road and on the other side is the lake and you're up on a hill, kind of secluded from everybody. So what do you need a bulletproof room in your house for? It's got a putting green out front. It's got a waterfall by the front door. What? It's insane. Absolutely insane, this house. So yeah, go check that video out. You will be gobsmacked, to quote the British. Yeah, 2270 Gale Road, Gale. You will be amazed. But the guy that does the video kind of is annoying because he's always talking about the view of the lake. And in the video, he's also selling some of his own products, like candles and stuff like that. So he does kind of promote his own merch. He's from Turkey and he does other videos like this too. But I mean, it's just, you're going to be amazed when you see this house. I was thinking of maybe doing a house like from the road, or a video from the road, to just show you can kind of see the roof of the house from the road. But it would be a very, very short video because I would not be able to get inside this house. I would only imagine how long it would take to get through this house. But as my battery is now about to die, I'm going to go ahead and let this go. But thank you for joining me today, and we will see you guys on the next one. Have a sunny day.